Hello everyone, welcome to What Culture Gaming. I'm Ewan and today I'm joined by Scott.
Hi.
And Josh.
Hello.
Why am I hosting this? I'm not the experienced
Because you had a
person.
controversial opinion and we said, well, might as well do a video as a discussion rather than you proclaiming to calm.
Yes.
So outline your status,
Yeah,
son.
so open world games, we all love them and hate them in equal measure, I think. Since like Ubisoft really blossomed as a studio and really started cultivating more and more games, you've seen the open world genre increase on an exponential scale. It feels today like every other game is an open world title.
Yes.
And while it's something we've all been clamoring for since we first got to like swing webs in Spider-Man 2, for instance, probably the best example of an open world game going.
Phenomenal example.
I posit to you both,
Come on then.
gentlemen,
Bring it.
that the open world genre is holding games back. And not through potentially saying that open world games can't be done well, because I think we've seen that quite the opposite. I mean, you'd only have to look at The Witcher or Skyrim or whatever.
No Man's Sky.
But I feel like I feel as though a lot of games these days,
Yes.
they have an open world for the sake of having an open world. Now, if I was going to use the example of the Arkham series, you all remember Arkham Asylum? That had kind of a small open world that was like a hub element. It was Arkham, like the entire asylum. You could go in any order you wanted to. But when you got to City and then to Night, you had these open world elements, and while they were very detailed per se, they did feel kind of shoehorned in because they had the whole excuses where you couldn't have civilians going around. And I think that if you have an open world, the main point should be to immerse the player in a locale. You have to look at Insomniac's Spider-Man game to see that an open world component is kind of essential. But for me these days, when you see an open world game, it's either short on detail and too damn big, in which case you end up getting lost and getting bored.
True.
Or they're kind of shoehorned in for no purpose whatsoever. So I'm kind of going to leave it to you guys to decide whether you think open world games have they gone too far?
I was
Let's
gonna say,
go
have
with
they
that.
gone
Open
too
world
far?
games
Too
gone too far?
open and too much of a world. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And actually, it reminds me of a quote from Hideo Kojima when he was developing Death Stranding. Where he said, once you go open world, you don't go back. Sorry, it was when he was developing Phantom Pain.
Yes.
And he said, once you go open world, you don't go back. Because he basically said that there were more opportunities afforded to the player and you can design a whole world. And if you want to get down to the meat and potatoes of the philosophy behind designing a game world, regardless of if you go all the way back to the 80s, you're trying to design something that is going to fuel escapism and you want to get lost in another world. I would say that, like, yes, something, and I mentioned No Man's Sky. I love No Man's Sky. I'll say it out loud and proud. Yes. You just, you feel all the regret. I'll take it on. I'll feel the pride. But that game was, whatever, like 64 quintillion planets or something ridiculous. Obviously fell back on procedural generation like one of the Elder Scrolls did, Elder Scrolls 2. But you do run that risk of knowing that when you purchase the product, you're never going to see all of it. And I know that a lot of people were put off The Witcher 3 the same way. And even looking on the horizon, even CD Projekt Red talking about Cyberpunk, the level of detail in that game, and they're very much saying, like, it's absolutely huge, pick your own path. You kind of know that you're not going to see all of it. Yeah. And you have to reanalyze or reapproach the way that you come to these games, knowing that you're not going to see all of it. And that's a weird consumer quandary. So I kind of agree with you, even though I do love open world games, but I totally see that, they are just reaching and reaching.
Yeah, again, I'm sort of kind of on the same thing where I kind of agree with you in that I prefer the smaller, more detailed open worlds like your Arkham Asylums and stuff like that, where you will see everything and you will investigate every nook and cranny where there's like encouragement to do so. At the same time, I think there's something in the appeal of you get this massive open world, you will probably not see everything that's in there. To me, that sort of feels, I'm going to be a bit, it feels a bit real. It feels a bit more real. You get GTA 5, and I love GTA 5 so much because it feels like real streets. It feels like the open world came first and the game design came second, and obviously that's quite, it's not to everyone's taste. Exactly, but for me, that's what I like.
I was going to say, because if I was going to use Skyrim as an example, that game is huge. I've put so many hours into that game, just exploring it and getting lost in the world. But to me, there is an essential component in that game that a lot of other open world titles lack, and that is a convincing lore and a mystery to your surroundings. When you jump into that world for the first time, you're provided with loads of context and the freedom to explore it in whatever way you want. Exploring Skyrim and through the open world, you will come across random quests. My mind goes back to the kind of, you remember the Dark Brotherhood quest?
Yeah.
Obviously you had the kid who was like doing the sweet mother chant in the racist city. I've forgotten which one it was. Windhelm.
The racist city.
Is it Windhelm?
I don't know.
Winterhold.
Gateshead. No.
It's in Windhelm.
Yes.
And but if you're traveling through the countryside before that, you can come across Cicero, the jester, who his cart's kind of broken down, and you only discover that by chance.
Yes.
And there are other games that do that. But I think they're few and far between. If I was going to use Far Cry 5 for an example, Far Cry is an open world game through and through, but there was nothing to me in that world that had an appeal. For me, if I'm going to go up into an open world title, I need to have a reason to explore. And if there's no impetus to explore, what's the point in an open world?
That was the perfect thing, because you said at the very beginning, it's basically down to the way that different developers do open worlds.
Yeah.
Ubisoft very much have their formula, and it was only very recently that they got rid of the climb the tower thing. They actually made a joke about it in Far Cry 5. But for the most part, you're not really doing that in Assassin's Creed Origins as much as you were in the past games. But you look to someone like CD Projekt Red, like they obviously like seed their world with different things, or someone like Bethesda. That tech, the quest tech that you're talking about, where you come across things. Yes, there are specifics that you find, but Bethesda have a quest generation tech that looks to the part of the map you haven't been to and generates an NPC to come get you and say, hey, there's been a murder over there, and you go, what? And you go to the place you haven't been. And so like it's kind of on the developers to make sure that we go to those places.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the most important part.
That's the big thing for me. I don't necessarily think it's about size or kind of even detail. You can have like a really detailed open world, but if it doesn't feel alive, and the problem I have a lot with Ubisoft's titles in particular, not so much now, but definitely back in the days of Watch Dogs 1, whereas the worlds felt very lifeless and very sort of artificial, whereas it's kind of treated as more of a theme park, whereas like you've got your big attractions, but the space in the middle is sort of wasted. Whereas I think you get other games like The Legend of Zelda, whereas Breath of the Wild, where you boot that game up and you see the things in the distance, and it's sort of set out like a theme park, but everything in between that space is worthwhile as well. Like it's your journey to those locations rather than the locations themselves.
That's like another thing is it's interesting watching the making of Fallout 76 on NoClip, because they basically said that the way the old Fallout games were made is like you're the focal point, so the world revolves around you. You're the central cog. So wherever you go, that's where the world is rendering. Even if you go look at Horizon, they're only rendering what you can see. It's really fascinating if you want to look into the making of that. But when they started making Fallout 76, they had to change that and make it so that the world populates depending on X number of players. But that way of making something feel alive, that for me only rebounds on the whole thing of like I'm not going to see everything,
right?
Because like they're all dynamic interactions, they're all random animations, they're all things that I'm not supposed to see all of it. I'm supposed to live in this world for as long as I want to, and I always come back to the consumer proposition, because you look at something like God of War. Nearly everybody who's finished God of War will have seen everything that game has to offer, minus like a tiny fraction of side quests. But the way that game organizes its content, it feels incredibly good value for money. Whereas you could play Assassin's Creed Origins for like 50 hours and barely see any of it. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad.
And that's where the sort of wider problem comes in for me, because that, like I said, I enjoyed that, but I don't enjoy it when every game is that, you know what I mean? That's why I love having the God of Wars, the more linear games like your Uncharted, your more story-driven games, and I feel like as we push towards open world, we're losing those experiences, or those experiences are being changed. Even like I said in Uncharted, you get those larger levels where you can, they're sort of mini sandboxes.
Wide linear is what the industry's calling it.
Even with God of War, and like I sort of like that approach, because you do get to see everything without sort of losing the structure and the sort of like drive forward that you get with those story-driven games.
I think I agree. I think that the problem for me is that the genre almost seems pervasive in the way that it kind of manifests in so many different games where they wouldn't necessarily need an open world.
Yeah.
And it comes back to the Arkham games again, because you have something like Origins, and at that point they had the entirety of Gotham to play with, and they had to come up with the excuse of, oh, there's no, there's a snowstorm and literally everyone's gone and stuff. And why not just make it a linear game and have like the different sections? I don't know. I'm kind of the opinion at the moment that open world games are best used sparingly, and in the event that the kind of they suit the title well. And I think Insomniac Spider-Man is a testament to that. I don't think anyone really wants to play a Spider-Man game where you can't swing around New York. No one wants to play a Fallout title where you can't explore the wasteland. There are certain games and series that have a convincing lore that you want to explore.
But what if they did like a really focused Fallout game with a really dedicated story where you started with the Liam Neeson style Fallout 3 stuff and you carried it all the way through, and they really hammered home the world, the atmosphere, the revelations, the plot twists.
What do you guys think of that?
That'd be lovely.
I don't know if you can do that, you know what I mean? But then again, I didn't think Metal Gear could go open world, and it did, and it was good, so...
Yeah. Well, let us know where you side on the great open world debate, because we're going to probably go and knock some lumps out of each other once we're done recording. It was very civil, wasn't before.
No Man's Sky is good, goddammit.
No!
As always, I've been Ewan.
I've been Scott.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye!
Bye.